In our previous session, the first lesson in this course, I talked in rather general terms about what investing really is, about how it's the commitment of capital and time and effort with the intention of making a profit. I talked also about who is an investor, clearly the individual or entity who's making that commitment, and one who has specific expectations as to the magnitude and the timing of that profit, that return on invested capital. Also talked a bit about risk tolerance, the investor as having a certain degree of willingness to accept risk, or perhaps very little willingness. But all of that going into the mix in terms of the investor making an informed and intelligent decision as to what kind of investment suits him or her best. And clearly, starting off with general information about investing is an appropriate place to start. But that's not exactly what you signed up for, because you're interested in a particular kind of investing. You're interested in real estate. And if you were reading the description of this course, you realize that we're going to be focusing on a subsection of investing in real estate, specifically investing in income-producing property, aka rental property. You're probably well aware of the fact that there's more than one kind of real estate. There is, of course, the personal residence, the classic single-family home. There is the type of income property or rental property that we're going to be talking about in this course. And even within that kind of property, there are subcategories. You could be looking at retail or apartment buildings or mini warehouse or industrial. There are other ways of making money from real estate. Of course, there is land development. There are opportunities that are associated with real estate but don't involve real property directly, such as investing in REITs or in mortgages. But our focus is indeed going to be on income property. And so having said that, the logical next question is, what is income property? Well, I would submit to you this definition, that it is real estate that you buy, hold, and eventually resell for its ability to produce rental income. Now, you want to keep in mind that that is indeed, as I was just saying, a very specific type of real estate, and it is different from single-family residence, for example, which you might buy and sell at a market price. When I teach this material to my grad students, I usually have a lecture hall full of anxious individuals, and I start off by asking, does anybody here own their own home? And invariably, some hands go up, usually accompanied by smiling faces, and I kind of infer that one of the reasons for the smile is that these folks are probably thinking to themselves, well, there you go. I already know a little bit about real estate. I probably have a head start on some of my fellow students. After all, I've bought and sold a piece of real estate, so I kind of know what this is all about. Perhaps somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I then proceed to try to pop that balloon a little bit by telling those students, well, I'm sorry, but those of you who already own a home are probably at a little bit of a disadvantage here in learning this material, because it's going to be necessary for you to try to unlearn some of what you have already experienced, to try to put that out of your mind and to learn an entirely new way of thinking about real estate. To a certain extent, my remarks are tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely, because I show them these two pictures here. On the left, you'll see what I think looks pretty much like a single-family house, two-car garage. And on the right is my best approximation of what I think looks like an apartment building. And I suggest that, as I told the students, a little knowledge might be a dangerous thing. That presuming that you know how one works because you know how the other works may not be the best first step for you. So if one of these is an income property, and one is not, let's focus our attention on the income property, on something like the apartment building or the retail center or the office building, whatever, and ask what I think is a very important question, and that is, what do income property investors really buy? What are they after? Well, are they really buying the land, or perhaps the building, or the location? I'm sure you've all heard the old axiom about the three most important parts about real estate are the location, and the location. But what is it that income property investors really buy? They buy the income stream. And we're going to be talking about this a bit in this session, but I'm going to be coming back to this over and over again as we proceed through the various segments of this course. And while I expect to go over what I believe are a fair number of very useful and valuable topics in regard to investing in real estate during the progress of this course, there are going to be a few that really stand head and shoulders above the others in regard to their importance. And I'm going to tell you right now, the concept of the income stream is definitely one of those really important topics that you want to try to internalize as much as possible. Income-producing investment property is fundamentally a different kind of creature from the single-family personal residence. Perhaps an example will help make this more clear. Let's start with the single-family residence. Today, a particular property sold for $500,000. It's in an owner-occupied neighborhood of single-family homes. It's a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial, and it's in good condition. Now, you happen to own the house next door, and that's also a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial, also in good condition. If you tried to sell that house today, what do you think you might reasonably expect to receive? Put away your calculator, log off of Zillow. This is not exactly rocket science. You should expect to receive approximately the same amount, because everything about your property is comparable to the one that just sold. It's a market-driven phenomenon. Now let's compare that to a sort of analogous situation with an income-producing property. We're going to take two small office buildings located in the central business district of a city, and we're going to even put them in the middle of the block so that neither one has the advantage of a corner location, a business advantage there. These two properties, similar to the single-family homes, are physically virtually identical. They were built at the same time, designed by the same architect, constructed by the same contractor. They're both in good condition, equally good condition. So everything about them physically is virtually the same. But they have one intangible that differentiates them. The first property is leased at market rates. So the rental rates currently are what the market demands. And those leases also call for periodic escalations over the next 10 years. Now, the other property was leased at market rates several years ago, but those leases extended for quite a while and don't have any escalations to increase the rent. So, in fact, we're currently below market, and we're going to stay there for the next 10 years. So the only thing that's different between these two buildings is the income stream. One property has current market rates and lease clauses that will increase those rates over time. The other building is below market rates and doesn't have any increases occurring over the next 10 years. So physically the properties are identical, but from the point of view of their income stream, they are different. Now, would you pay the same amount for each of those two properties? Would they be worth to you equally for their investment value? Well, clearly not. The second building is worth less because its income stream is less robust and will not grow. The income stream is what is driving our estimate of value of these properties, and it's driving what we can anticipate as a return on our invested capital. I can now start to feel my computer screen vibrating with people who are saying, but wait, you expect me to really believe that location's got nothing to do with the value of a property? Or that perhaps the aesthetic appeal has nothing to do with the value of the property, that it's all based on the income stream? Well, to an extent, I would agree with your complaint. Location is not irrelevant, and neither is the aesthetic appeal. But what you can't overlook is that these items are relevant to the extent that they affect the income stream. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take location. If your property is at a very desirable business location, then you should be able to command higher rent rates. You should have lower vacancy. You can attract quality tenants. And this may perhaps not be true of a property in a less desirable business location. So location matters, but it matters insofar as it affects the income stream, not in and of itself, the way it might with a single-family house, but it affects the income stream, and therefore indirectly it would affect the value. Of course, if a property were in a great location, but it had the crummy leases that you just saw in that previous example that I discussed, well, then the location would be no benefit to you. So the location would not do anything to help drive the value of your property. And the same is true, of course, of the aesthetic appeal of a property. Yes, a beautiful Victorian mansion converted into professional offices should be more appealing and more valuable, if you will, than some cement block bunker that looks like a bomb shelter. But if you don't generate the income stream based on the greater appeal of that property, then the greater appeal becomes irrelevant to the valuation because it didn't create income. It didn't create revenue. It didn't enhance the income stream. The income stream is what drives the value of an income-producing piece of real estate and what drives our expected return on investment.